Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Dynamics 365 Financials for Churches webinar for June 8, 2017. We're going to go ahead and dive right in. So we're going to start out, we'll do some quick introductions, and then we will get into a live demonstration of Microsoft Dynamics 365 for Financials. After we finish that, we'll talk about how to buy it and what it costs for the software and the implementation, and we will save some time at the end for some question and answer. My name is George Delp. I'll be your host this afternoon, and Jonathan Kroll will be joining us. He's our problem solver. If you have any questions in general, he'll also be moderating those. And probably the most important guy this afternoon is Brian Dern. He's going to do the actual demonstration. Let's start out with a tale of pain. We've talked to a lot of churches over the past several years, and we've learned quite a bit. This is what we heard. We hear time and time again that your software is old, clunky, and hard to use. So today, we're going to show you easy-to-use, pure web-based software. We also hear over and over that your software is not doing what you need it to do. And by that, I mean reporting is hard. Integration with other systems is difficult or non-existent. Automation of processes like workflows doesn't work right. And, going paperless. Everyone wants to go paperless these days, but the ability to scan documents and work with them just doesn't happen. So we're going to show you modern, feature-rich software that does all of that and a whole lot more. We hear this a lot, too, especially in the church and not-for-profit community, that good software is just flat out too expensive. I have great news for you today because Dynamics 365 for Financials, it starts at $40 per user per month. There's even some cheaper users that I'll show you in a little bit. So, without further ado, I want to present Microsoft Dynamics 365 Business Edition for Financials. That's the long name. We're just going to call it Dynamics 365 for Financials for the rest of this session. Now, this is a multi-platform solution. It runs on your desktop through a browser. It also runs on tablets, and it will run on a phone. And it supports all the popular platforms, Apple, Android, and Windows. And these are actual apps on the phones and tablets. It's not just a browser experience. They're apps. They work really well. They fit the screen right. There's no funny scrolling, and they're very responsive. So they really have the anytime, any device thing figured out really well with this. It's also pure software as a service. That's the only way to buy it. And it's hosted directly by Microsoft. Microsoft has over 100 data centers across the world. You do a quick Google on Microsoft data centers, you can see some really neat videos on what they look like. But needless to say, this solution is hosted by one of the largest and most important IT companies in the world. Now, Dynamics 365 Financials does a lot of things. And this slide here lists most of the things it offers today. But what we're going to focus on today is what's going to be most applicable to a church. So on the financial side, we're going to look at the general ledger payables, financial reporting budgets. On the additional column, there's some things that I think you will really enjoy, specifically some of the workflows, dimensions, and some of the document management capabilities. Now this URL here, if you type roadmap.dynamics.com into your browser, it's going to take you to the roadmap for all of the Dynamics 365 products. There's actually quite a few. As you can see here, we're looking at financials. So select Business Edition and then select Dynamics 365 for Financials, and it'll bring up a list of features that are coming in future releases, features that were just released, features that were released in the past. The reason I bring this up is Microsoft is making huge investments in this offering, and they're constantly adding new things. So to get the most current list of what's offered, roadmap.dynamics.com. So before we move on to the demo, I want to pause real quick and see if there are any questions. Jonathan, do we have any questions?
There was one about, you mentioned something along the lines of a cheaper license, and just a question on what that was exactly.
Oh, sure, and we'll get into that detail after we do the demo, but the $40 user, that's the full read-write user, and read-only user is the $5 per month. And there's actually some other things they can do too, like with workflows, but I have a couple of slides that'll spell it out in great detail. So I promise we'll get back to that in more detail. Any other questions?
That's it.
All right. Well, with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Brian Dern, and he's going to walk us through some of the basics. Take it away, Brian.
Might help if I unmute myself. Thank you, George. Can everyone see my screen all right?
Looks great.
Okay, great. So here's kind of what we're going to go through today. To start off, I'll talk about the role centers, and we'll go through the navigation, and we'll navigate through Dynamics, and I'll give you a bit of an overview on all of the various features. And then we'll talk about some other stuff in more detail. But first, yeah, let's move over to Dynamics, and we'll talk about the role centers and navigation. So here is the web interface for Dynamics 365 for Financials. And so I'm logged in as the Business Manager Role Center. And what is the Role Center, you ask? Well, the Role Center, it really just attempts to tailor the application to the functions that you are going to use most often. So, for instance, as the business manager, I'm mostly concerned with my chart of accounts, customers, vendors, items, and bank accounts. The Role Center has nothing to do with security. As long as you have security access to any window, you can access it no matter what Role Center you're in. It really just determines what navigation shortcuts you have and what types of elements appear on your home screen. Now, if I wanted to change Role Centers, I can go up to the top here to My Settings, and then click on Role Centers here. And this is a list of the different Role Centers that are available in Dynamics 365 for Financials. I'm logged into the Business Manager Role Center because it's a very versatile Role Center. It's got a lot of different area pages. And changing Role Centers is the easiest, clicking on one of those. So I'm going to cancel here. So let's just go through kind of what you're looking at here. Over on the left, we have our navigation pane. And so this is where I go to get all of my, my shortcuts for the Business Manager Role Center. And if I click on the Home button here, I get a list of my different module area pages. And then I can click on those to navigate to various other pages. Up at the top, I have my ribbon. And the ribbon, it's similar to all the other Microsoft applications like Excel. It's where all your actions are. And these actions will change based on what window you're in. And then in the middle, the main window is it's our viewing pane. And so what you're kind of looking at here is these tiles here, they're called action tiles. And they just give me some information about various aspects of my company. So I can see here I've got 4 open purchase orders and 4 ongoing purchase invoices. I can see I've got some overdue purchase orders. And I can click on any of these. And if I click on that, I can see the entries that make up that number. And I can further drill down into those if I want to. And if I click on this gray bar here, it's going to navigate me back to wherever I was. And so you can tailor these cues, as they call it, or these action tiles, to show only what you need to show and nothing else. So if you don't need to see sales, you don't have to show sales. It's really up to you to tailor it to yourself. Over on the right here, we've got some KPI charts. I've got a chart that shows my my contribution sources. And then scrolling down, we've got our self-service section, which if you have workflows set up, this is where you go to approve or reject any of your workflow assignments. We've got our list of favorite accounts over here. So if you have some accounts you want to keep track of, like your cash accounts or maybe accounts payable or accounts receivable, you can keep track of those. And you can manage your own list. You can add or remove accounts based on your own needs. And again, if I click on the balance here, I can drill down into those entries. And so I'm just going to click on the gray bar to navigate back. Down at the bottom here, we have a trial balance, which is a simple trial balance, gives me a snapshot of the health of my company. And then over here on the right, we have our report inbox. And we'll get through a little bit more in depth about what the report inbox does. But basically, any report you can generate it to the inbox. And then you can access it from any device that you want. So if we go over to the different area pages here, let's click on Finance. So this is all the different functions you can do in Finance. We've got our general journals here. And general journals, it includes not only our general accounting journals, like for instance this one. I've got in this example, my rent expense. So I'm debiting rent, and I'm crediting my prepaid rent account. And then I've got some other entries here. I've got some general contributions that we're entering there. And then we also can do bank transactions. So in this example, I am transferring $10,000 into my savings account from my operating account here. And then this is where you would also go to enter vendor invoices that do not include inventory. So for instance, maybe your utilities expense in this example, we're paying it, or we're entering an invoice for $100 in utilities expense to our Fabricam vendor here. And we're assigning it to our East Charlotte location. And I'll get into the location code here right now when we talk about the chart of accounts. So this is our chart of accounts, and one thing I really like about the chart of accounts is that you can see the period balance and the year-to-date balance right from this window, and I could even drill down into this and see my ledger entries. And one thing you'll notice about the chart of accounts is that my account numbers only have one segment, and that's by design. So Dynamics 365 for Financials, it really only uses the natural account segment. Any additional account segments are treated as what are called financial dimensions. And financial dimensions, they're a little bit more versatile than account segments. You can use them as account segments and keep reusing them to track additional aspects of a transaction, like, for instance, a department location or ministry in the case of a church. So that's what we have in our company here. Let's take a look at the dimensions. I'm going to click that search bar up here, and the search bar really just allows me to navigate to any window from any window. And so even if you don't have a navigation shortcut, you can always search for the window. So let's take a look at my dimensions. It's got predictive searching, so I don't have to type in the whole thing. It'll search any window page report that has this search term in it. So we're looking at our dimensions window. So in Dynamics Church, we have two dimensions. We have our ministry, and so let's take a look at the values for that. So the ministry is really just I've got my general fund, my general contributions, and then we also have some restricted funds. We've got an after-school ministry, youth group, and so on and so forth. And you can actually create a hierarchy for your financial dimensions as well. So I've got my general contributions, and then I've got a group of restricted funds with a couple of different funds in there, and then we can total those up into that total line. And so all of these dimensions you can include as filters on various reports. So if you wanted to see an income statement by a particular ministry, you could certainly do that, or a particular site, certainly do that. And then let's just take a look at our sites here. We've got a hierarchy in here too. Our church has 6 locations, 4 in Charlotte, 2 in Concord. So we've got a group set up for Charlotte and a group set up for Concord. And the financial dimensions, like I said, they're very versatile. You don't have to use them as account segments. You can, if there's a temporary aspect you want to track, like a particular project, in other accounting systems, you might have to create an account segment for that. But in Dynamics, you can just use a financial dimension, track it for as long as you need, and then afterwards, it's not cluttering up your chart of accounts with a bunch of unused accounts. So if we go down to account schedules, we've got account schedules in Dynamics. They're essentially our reports, our financial reports. So in our case, we've got our balance sheet here, an income statement, all our financial reports. And then we also have another custom report, our weekly donations report. This is one that I created, and it basically just summarizes all of our donations that we received in the previous week. And it'll just summarize those by location and by ministry. So if let me print that for you real quick. So I'm just going to put in my report parameters, and we're going to view that as a PDF. So this is just a basic report that I threw together, and it shows all of our contributions for each ministry and for each location, and summarizes them up. And a report like this I could print as a PDF, I could send it to Excel, Word, or I could send it to my report inbox. We've got GL account categories, and this is how you can organize your chart of accounts, and you can use these categories as various filters and lines on various reports. Got the cash receipts journal. This is where you go to receive cash from customers. Most churches don't have customers, or they at least use the people management software to handle that. Payment journal, this is where you go to cut a check to a vendor, for instance. So in this example, I'm cutting a check to the Fabricam company, a computer check, paying this invoice in that amount. So Dynamics can handle computer checks, ACH, paper checks you cut yourself. It can handle it all. I've got a list of my bank accounts here, and you can actually link your bank account to your online bank account, and we'll go into a little bit more about that when we talk about bank integration. The payment reconciliation journal, we'll also cover this during the bank integration. This is where you go to reconcile your bank account. Any past reconciliation statements will show up here. Dynamics 365 is it's fully capable of handling multi-currency, so if you need additional currencies other than US dollar, you can set those up here. And then it does include some light HR functions. If we move over into purchasing, we've got a list of our vendors, and we can find various reports based on our vendors, trial balance, aged accounts payable, and then other account details. And then I've also got my incoming documents window, and this, we'll get into this when we talk about the invoice scanning and OCR, but this is where I go to any document I scan or upload will appear here. And then if I have workflows set up, all of my workflow approval tasks will come in here, and I can approve, reject, or delegate those. Under Advanced Finance, we have GL Budgets, and we'll get into this in a little bit. And then we also have a fully featured fixed asset suite. The self-service section, that's where you would go to create timesheets, but I'm not sure how many of you will be using timesheets. But that's a general overview of the entire application. So let's move over to the agenda here, and let's dive deeper into some other aspects of Dynamics. So we talked about the role centers and navigating around Dynamics and kind of what you're seeing. So let's talk about importing contribution data. So a lot of churches use people management software to handle their donations, and the Church of Dynamics is no different. So we actually what generally happens is your people management software will spit out all the data into a text file similar to this, where we have our what account it's going into, if it's being earmarked for a particular fund, and obviously the amount. And in here we're importing entries for our eCharlotte location. So we use a tool called Smart Connect, and so Smart Connect will look at that text file, and it'll map those fields into whatever field they need to be in Dynamics. So let's just take a look at the mapping here. So it'll read our text file, and that's about what the data looks like going in. And creating these mappings is really easy. It's basically just drag and drop. So I've got one pretty much set up here, but so let me just show you how easy it is. All you have to do to map one of these fields is take your source field over here. We've got an account type, and we're just going to map that to account type over here. So I'm just going to drag and drop that in, and that's that. So let's run this map, and yes, we would like to run this map now. So yeah, it's going to roll that up, and what it's going to do is it's going to create a journal entry for all of these entries, and it'll spit that out as an unposted journal entry that we can go in and review and post as needed. So this is just what the mapping looks like when it runs. So it's going to create just one journal entry since they're all coming in on the same date. And there we go, easy as pie. So if we go back into Dynamics and go back into Finance, I think I might have left these in here from our previous journal. Yep, oh, there they are. So we've got our all of our general contributions there that came in. And so that's how easy it is to import your contribution data. And so at that point, all we need to do is post it, and we're good to go. So next up,
Brian, we could also set that up to recur and be scheduled, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, Smart Connect is a great program. It is very feature rich, and you can set it up to you can set it up on a schedule. You can set it up to even monitor a folder, and anytime you dump a file into that folder, it would kick off that integration immediately. So you don't even have to schedule it. It's just, it can be whenever you dump a file in that folder.
Right, thank you.
So let's talk about budgets, budget by fund and location. The budgets are really easy to work with in Dynamics. It's the easiest way to me is to do it in Excel and import it in. So let's kind of go through that. So if we go to the advanced finance here, and we go to, I've got one set up here already, so let's just take a look at that. So this is what the budget matrix window looks like. Currently I have my my GL accounts filtered to only show my income statement accounts because I don't create a budget for my balance sheet accounts. Now, you can create a budget for any of your transaction dimensions. So if you want to create a separate budget for each of your locations, you can certainly do that, upload them both, and then it would roll all of that up into one budget. I can also, I can really create a budget for any of my transaction dimensions. So in this case, I can have a separate budget by ministry and or location. To make it, create a budget entry, it's as simple as modifying these cells. So I can just modify this cell here, and that would change my, my budget entry. I currently have these set up to, these cells as one period as a month. You can get pretty granular with this. You can create a budget per day if you really wanted to, or maybe even per week. If you create a budget per week, what it would do is it would basically just roll all of these figures up into that total, into a total amount if you were looking at it in a different view. It'll roll up, but it won't roll down. So if I create a monthly entry, it'll stick all of those entries on, I believe it's the first of the last day. But to create a budget, I think the easiest method is to import one from Excel. So let me just show you what that looks like. So let's go back here. So I've got a blank budget set up here. So this budget is blank, don't have any entries. And really all we have to do is we just have to import from Excel. What I did was I exported to a blank one from Excel to get the template, and then all you do is fill out that template, and I've got one filled out here. So this is kind of what it looks like. It'll give you that blank sheet, and really all you have to do is fill in what you want the monthly total to be, or whatever period you set it for. I've got a month set up here. But all you do is you fill in those cells, and you save this file, and then you just import from Excel. I tell it I want to replace the entries from the budget named import. Yep, that's what I'm doing. And then it'll have me choose a file. So I'm going to choose my budget. And so yes, I want to replace all these entries, and successfully updated 192 entries. So that was a lot easier than doing this manually. And so there they are now. So that's easy.
Hey, Brian, don't mean to interrupt, but I do have a couple of questions for you.
Sure.
So we have a question about importing data, and specifically, can you import things like journal entries, budgets, payables, or purchase orders?
Yes, yes, and yes. All of this can be imported.
Awesome. And then another question is about dimensions and the number that you or is there a limit to the number that you can have?
So you get an unlimited number of dimensions. You can have as many as you want. You can set 2 up to be global dimensions, and global dimensions will appear as columns on various transaction lines. You can have 6 other shortcut dimensions, and shortcut dimensions you can use as filters on various reports, and then you can have an unlimited number of other dimensions. And you can always add any dimension, any number of dimensions to any transaction. It's just the shortcut dimensions and the global dimensions appear as columns, whereas the other dimensions, there's an additional click to get to that extra window. Yeah. But yes, you can have as many as you want, and you can add them all to the same transaction.
And Brian, I think some looking at this question in some more detail, I think it also might be asking, because they go on to say our church has hundreds of projects, so it may be one dimension that is called projects, but they could have an unlimited number of values for that one dimension, or hence an unlimited number of projects, correct?
Yes, absolutely. Yes. You have an unlimited number of dimensions and dimension values.
Okay. And and Jonathan, I think you put that on the answer online. There is a project accounting module that's included with this too, but that's above and beyond what we're going to show today. But we'd be happy to walk you through it on a one-on-one basis. So, all right, take it away, Brian.
All right, so that's the process for uploading and modifying your budget. And now that budget's ready to be used in various reports. So that brings us to our next topic, is generating an income statement and balance sheet. So let's go through that. It's really easy and painless. So we're going to go navigate back to finance, and we're going to go back to our account schedules. And so I've got our balance sheet here, and really all I have to do is select the line and hit print, and it's going to save the last options I used. So the last time I ran this for April. I'm just going to run that again. If I wanted to see my balance sheet for a specific location, I could do that, but let me just look at the balance sheet for all locations. So I want to see that as a PDF. I can send it to Word or Excel, and if I hit schedule, that's going to send it to my report inbox, and then I can access it from any device. But I just want to see this as a PDF, and it'll download it as a PDF. And there it is. And so that's what it looks like. And this was the out-of-the-box report. It's not very pretty, but we can make yours pop and make it tailor it to however you want it to look. And then the income statement is pretty much the same thing. So I'm just going to go up here, hit print. Now I have to give it a starting date this time. And my income statement, it does have a column for budget entries. So I need to tell it which budget to use for this particular report. So I'm just going to use that 2017 budget, and then we're going to send that to the PDF. And so it's going to generate itself, and it'll pop up down there. And so here's our basic income statement here, and there's our budget lines here, and we've got a calculated column for budget versus actual. All simple stuff. Pretty easy and painless. Also, as an added benefit, on your home screen, there is a button for financial statements, so you can actually generate your financial statements right from the home screen. And there it is, financial statements, balance sheet, income statement, cash flows, retained earnings, and stuff that's collected. So let's talk about how to schedule a recurring report. So as I mentioned, you can send any report you want to your report inbox, and I sent my weekly donation report there. But you can also set up a report to appear there on a recurring basis. So let's go through setting that up. So if I click on report inbox, I'll go to show queue. And so this is everything in my queue. I only have one report with a couple different code units. Don't worry about those. They're set up by your add-ons. So I'm just going to create a new record, and I want to generate a report, and I'll tell it which report. Let's just say I want to see a detailed trial balance. So I want to see a detailed trial balance, and to make it start at a later time, but if I leave that blank, it'll start now. It'll generate it now. And I want this to appear, I want to get one every day of the week. So every weekday. And let's just say I want to keep track of it at the end of the day. So let's start that at 4:30 in the afternoon. I could type in 4:30 p.m. or I could just do military time. I find that a little bit easier. And so that's pretty much all I have to do is tell it what report, when, how frequent, and then set status to ready. And so now that is scheduled. So it might take it just a minute to generate, but I would think it's there when we refresh the page. Oh wait, it's not 4:30. I forgot. No. So at 4:30 it'll be there. So that's how you schedule a report, and it's pretty easy and painless, huh? So now let's talk about invoice scanning, OCR, and workflow. So OCR is really nifty. It stands for Optical Character Recognition. And the OCR service that works with Dynamics 365, it's hosted by a company called Lexmark. It's a really great service. They have a couple of different plans available for you. So if I go back into purchasing and I go into incoming documents, this page is kind of a repository for all of the documents that I've either taken a picture of with my phone, with the app on my phone, the Financials app on my phone, or I can upload any file I want to the system, and it'll store it here. And the benefit of storing it here is that they're all backed up with the rest of your data, so you'll always have them. And so I can actually look at all of these invoices as well. So if I want to see what that invoice is, I can see the PDF version of it. And so that's my invoice. It looks like they're charging us for rent. All right, sounds good. And actually, I can send that off to my OCR service. And what the OCR service is going to do, it's going to read it. It's going to try to fill in all of the financial information it can. So in this one, I've already sent it off and got it back. And it looks like it picked up the vendor name, the invoice number, the document date, and the amount. So those are the main fields I need. And from that, I can create a journal entry with it. And I've already created one here, this journal entry. So it's got a nice audit trail. You can see what transaction in the system this was attached to. And so if I want to drill down into it, there it is right there. It's my invoice for Fabricam for, we'll say, prepaid rent and that amount. And the vendor is Fabricam. And the great thing about the OCR service is that it learns from you. So actually, let me go back to my other one. So what you can do is after you send it off and they send it back, if there's any corrections that need to be made, you can make those corrections yourself and send it off to them. So I'll hit this correct OCR data button. And so these are all the different fields that it found. And maybe it didn't quite get that vendor invoice number correct, or maybe it misspelled the name or something. So I can actually make these corrections here and then send it off to the OCR service, and it'll learn from its own mistakes so that the next time it gets an invoice from Fabricam, it'll treat it as it'll spell the name correctly, for instance. So it's a really great tool that saves you a lot of time, and I highly recommend it. Also from here, I can, if I click on Actions, I can send a approval request. So if I have a workflow set up that my manager has to approve any invoices I scanned or take a picture of, I can do that from here, and then he would get a notification, and he would be able to perhaps log in on his phone into the self-service section and approve that right from there, without even logging into the website or to the web app. And also, you don't have to use the OCR service. You can still upload documents here, not send them off, and just create it manually, and still have that that image backup available in your system. Saves you from having a large, bulky filing cabinet to file all of your paper documents. So that's the basic.
Hey, Brian, before you move to the next section, I got a question for you, please.
Sure.
So is there a template for a statement of functional expenses which is based on allocations of expenses to various programs?
I'm sorry, say that again?
So is there a template for a report, a statement of functional expenses report, which is based on allocations of expenses to various programs?
I don't think, I'm pretty sure there's not a template for that. It sounds like it would need to be like a custom report. But we can certainly do a custom report. But to answer your question, no, I don't believe there's a template for it.
Okay.
But something that that's something that you could create like we often do. Everybody wants their reports a little different, right, Brian?
Right, exactly, yeah. We can definitely create any custom reports you need.
And then there's a question about the licensing for the OCR service. and that is, does the invoice scanning and OCR cost additional, or is it included in the $40 license? Or is there a per document charge? How is that priced?
Yeah, and I'll take that one. It's a freemium service, so you get like 75 scans free per month, and after that, it would be, and I don't have the exact numbers off the top of my head, after that it's like $1 per scan, or you can pay like 50 cents per scan for each scan. So it does cost extra unless you just do a little amount, and whether you go with the free plus the dollar or the one that's basically like the half price, and we can get you the exact numbers for that after the webinar. Would depend on your document throughput. And as Brian mentioned, you can still scan. It's the OCR service that is the potential extra cost above and beyond $75 per month.
Yep. And one thing I forgot to show you is that it does indeed keep everything, even if it's posted. You just have to hit that show all button. So you have a complete history of everything that is scanned. And yes, you do not need the OCR service to do the scan. So, all right. So the next thing I'd like to talk about is the bank integration, which is a really great feature. So let's move back here. So let me go back to Finance. And let's go to Payment Reconciliation Journal. So the main benefit of linking your bank accounts is the ability to import your bank transactions. So what you do is when it comes time to reconcile your bank statement, you come in here and you import your bank transactions. And so it'll link up to your bank, and it'll download those transactions. If you don't link your bank account, you can still upload your transactions. You just have to get the proper text file from your bank. And once you upload your transactions, we'll spit them out here. And then you can apply automatically. And now what that's going to do is that's going to look at the transaction date, the transaction amount, and the document number. And it's going to attempt to match what's on your bank statement with what it finds in the system already. And if it can match on any one of those, it will do that, and you just need to accept or reject it. But once you have either manually applied the payment or accepted the automatic application, all you do is you post and you reconcile your bank account, and it's pretty much as easy as that. If for some reason that you find that there's a transaction on your bank account statement that's not in the system, what you can do is you can actually create a new document or journal entry from this window in order to put it in the system. So it really saves you a lot of clicking around and moving around in the system when you can do pretty much everything from this window. So once you have that in the system, then you can go ahead and apply it on your bank account and go ahead and reconcile your bank statement. Any previous reconciliations will pop up in here if you need to review those. And another nifty thing is that your balance will also update from if you link it. I don't have ours linked, but it's a really great feature if your bank supports it. Most banks are supported as long as your online authentication is just username and password. If you have a token authentication, that's not supported quite yet, but I know they're working on it. And so the last thing I'd like to share.
Got a pause for you. Got a couple more questions.
Okay.
Got a lively crowd, which is always great, so thank you for the questions, folks. So does the system support budget detail lines and importing of those budget details?
Budget, well, so you can create a budget at the account level. So you can have one budget amount for each GL account, but that amount can be on a per day, per week, month, quarter, year basis. That's about as deep into the line items as you can get. Does that answer the question?
I guess we'll wait and see. I do have another one, though, and it is, how can the system do cost allocations among various cost centers?
Cost allocation among various cost centers. I assume you mean automatic I don't know that it can do anything automatically. It doesn't have any fixed allocation accounts, for instance, but you can split the amounts up when you're doing the transaction.
Okay, and I'll work with the individual that asked that question to see if that clarifies or not. Thank you, Brian.
All right, so the last thing I'd like to show you is the Outlook integration, which is a really great feature. It saves you a lot of time having to switch back and forth. So what it does is when you install Dynamics, if you're using Office 365 for your webmail, then it'll add this financials add-in here. So when I click on an email message, I can click on this financials add-in, and the applet will actually connect to my system. And what it's going to do is it's going to look for Jonathan Kroll's email address here, and it's going to see if it can find him as a contact in the system. Well, it looks like Jonathan's not a contact in my system, which is all right. I can go ahead and add him as a contact into my system. So Jonathan is with Crow's Nest Supplies here, okay? So let me associate him with Crow's Nest Supplies. I believe they're already in my system. Yep, they're right there. All right, so I'm going to add them now. So now Jonathan Kroll is a contact in my system. So now I can view his details. I can edit his details if I want to, right from here. I can now that he's a contact, I can create an opportunity. There's some light CRM functionality there. I can even transfer him from a contact to a customer or a vendor, or I can create an interaction with him, and then I can see the contact cover sheet, or I can set up some related customer vendor information if he's related to one or the other. The main point is that you can do a lot of things from Outlook, and if whatever I edit here and update, it'll update the master records in the web applet. So I believe let's see. I believe Brian Dern is already a vendor in our system, and if they're a vendor, what it'll do is it'll pull up some summary information for their account, and so you can kind of get a snapshot of where how you're sitting with them. You can see any overdue payments, overdue invoices. You can see their age balance and some other statistics for them. So I can see I've got a $200 balance here, and if I click on that, it'll tell me, oh, it's that invoice, and it's in red. That means it's overdue, so that's not good. And then I've got some other action tiles over here. So you can see my invoices. That's that one invoice. I can create a new purchase invoice. I can view the details for this vendor and make changes as needed. And I can even get a report of my vendor entries, or if I'm creating a new vendor, I can send an approval request to get that created, or I can see any approvals for this vendor if they have any outstanding. So there's a lot of great features right from Outlook. The main idea is to prevent you from having to switch back and forth if you need to get data or just some information out of Outlook. So do we have any questions about anything else that we've shown?
Nope.
Okay, all right. Well, that about concludes my portion of it. With that, I will turn it back over to George.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you very much. So my screen showing up, pricing?
Yes, I can see it.
All right. Perfect. So the pricing. Basically, it's $40 per user per month, and that is for a full user that can do everything, read, write to all the records in the system. Team member users are $5 per user per month, and they can read everything, and they have some limited write and update capability. My next slide is going to show you exactly what they can and cannot do. And then the Smart Connect tool that we looked at, if you want to have integrations, import data, and like we answered earlier, it'll import just about everything, journal entries, purchase orders, as well as the donation information, and schedule that, monitor folders, etc. That's a flat $200 a month. There's no limit on the number of integrations or whatnot or volume. Now, these limited users or these team members, we found these really popular with churches for two main applications. The first is for ministry leaders. For that $5 per user per month, you can give people a role center that will give them access to budget versus actual information for their ministry. No longer are you going to have to run that report and send it to them. You know, you can automate that, send them, let people access their own data like that. The other thing is for the workflows, particularly, purchase requisitions, so they can request things to be purchased. So those are two huge ones right there. Implementation, this is the other half. So, I mean, yeah, it does, hopefully it looked pretty easy to use, but we have several different packages, suited to the complexity of your needs. And what these packages offer are, basic setup and configuration of the modules, data conversion for the modules, and then integrations. So, two of the most popular we see are you want from your church management software, your donation information brought in, and a lot of times people want their payroll information brought in. And then, of course, training, and then a, certain months of support. If you get the Quick Start package, you can purchase additional support, but this is just to get you started. Maybe you feel comfortable, or maybe you just want to, use support on an hourly basis after that. Now, I did verify the OCR service pricing, and it is free up to $75, and then $1 after that each document, or you can just pay a flat fee of 56 cents per document. And with that, we appreciate everyone's time. Have a great and blessed day, and we hope to talk to you all soon.